Are we live? We're live. Thank you. We're here. AEW claims to have posted $1,100,000,000 in revenue. We're going to talk about that silly article. I'm also going to talk about a lot of other things on this live stream. We probably won't be here for a long time. Try to be here for a good time. So, how is everybody doing? Let's talk about this thing, yeah. But first, let's give some people some time to slide on in. If you're here, raise your hand. Let everybody know you're in the building. So some of the topics tonight, we're going to be dealing with basically the AEW WWE business situations. Both had pretty big business stories coming out. AEW with another article in Bloomberg. WWE with articles in Hollywood Reporter, and they released their 2022 combined earnings. I couldn't find the audio, so I didn't listen to it. I did listen to most of Shawn Michaels on his conference call, his NXT conference call. I can tell you pretty honestly that Shawn doesn't know much of anything about anything. But the audio is down. Let's see if I can turn the audio up. Is that better? Is that better? Is that better? Let's see. Let's see if I can. What's going on with my audio now? Oh, buddy. Greetings and salutations. What happened to my audio? Good question. Let's take a look. All right, so good. Audio has improved. All right. So, like I said, WWE, they had a business thing that they put out there, basically touting how successful they are. I mean, that stuff's real boring. I like going through it. I like listening to the earnings calls because they usually drop some information in there that might be pretty interesting, some fun stuff to talk about. This time it was something about a cinnamon toast crunch match. We're gonna talk about that because that's ludicrous. That's ludicrous. I'm also gonna talk about this WrestleMania thing. I caught the tail end of it. Didn't know much about what happened, but apparently they were spreading some kind of lie about Vicky Guerrero. That Vicky Guerrero herself came out and sort of unraveled. I'm not gonna be able to give you the precise situation of what happened because all tweets and stuff was deleted before I got to it. But I think I got the gist of it. I think I got the gist of the idea of what was going on. Are you still doing Q&As? Yes, I'll be doing Q&As. I may do a Q&A this Sunday, or I may do one next Thursday. The month just started. Well, I didn't do a January one, did I? Did I do a January Q&A? If I didn't, I need to double up. Maybe do 2 February ones, shorter month. But the Tony Khan article in Bloomberg. Oh my word, brothers and sisters, how? Oh my goodness. There was a guy. Let me tell you this guy. This was a guy when I was in Job Corps, right? Oh, I did a New Year's one. Okay. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I did. I think I did do a New Year's one. I don't keep track of my own content. I swear to God, I don't put that much thought into this stuff. Um, I do another one pretty soon. Then I do another one pretty soon. I definitely want to do Q&As. But all right. So there was this guy, right? And he was sitting there, and it was a joke going around the campfire that everybody had a little bit of a nickname. So there was a guy we knew, we called him Jesus Feet. Why? Because he walked around in sandals all day and his feet was ashy. I mean, it's just weird things. Job Corps is a federal job program where it actually helps young people. I think it's from 8 to 20. I mean, 8. No, I think it's 14 to 26 with job skills. So essentially, they can teach you basically trades. It's a kind of a trade school. You can go there and learn how to be a chef, an electrician, a carpenter. You can go learn how to do windows and doors. You can go learn how to do a bunch of stuff that involve manual labor, essentially. But it's quite residential, so it comes across sometimes like a mixture of trade school and college. Um, you can get your high school diploma, GED. You can get a license. It's basically a way for if you were in some way bumped off of the regular track, um, then you can get back on. Let's say, like me, I dropped out of high school. So I needed to catch back up. I needed to get a high school diploma. I needed to get a GED. I needed to get some job skills. Not saying Job Corps was good for any of that stuff. It was a federal program. But um, it did turn some things around for me. But I went to Job Corps in Indiana. And I'm telling you, that was different. Going from Detroit to middle of nowhere, Indiana. But there was a guy, his name was Jesus Feet, because he walked around in sandals all day, and his feet was ashy. There was a white kid. I don't know where he was from. He was probably like middle of nowhere, Ohio, middle of nowhere, Illinois, something like that. The thing about Job Corps that was really cool is that there would be people from all over the place, basically all over the Midwest. There would be guys from Chicago, guys from Detroit, guys from Cincinnati, Cleveland, Gary, Indiana, whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of like college out of state for but it wasn't college. Even though some people were older than others, the oldest person there could be like 27 or something like that, which is weird because the girls could be teenagers, and you never know how that thing might go. And it goes exactly the way you think. You know, a bunch of teenagers hanging around each other, sneaking in and out of dorm rooms and stuff like that. I mean, it was basically some kind of amalgamation of high school and college. In any event, I'm really off track of what I was going into this story for. There was a guy in there who admitted to sucking his own dick, and I stayed as far away from that guy as I possibly could. There's just I never understood the idea behind it. I just was like, guy likes dick in his mouth. I mean, it's weird. It's weird. And yeah, spring break is still a thing. Where's spring break gonna go? It's still college students. Of course, it's still a thing. But I said all that, even though I had to stop to explain, is that that guy who who did that to himself seemed to still pleasure himself less than Tony Khan. Tony Khan apparently is paying other people to do it for him, which is probably more appropriate than doing it yourself. And no, it's not that big of a deal, Darren, because sometimes people don't know this stuff. You know, what would I do if somebody told you? People have said that shit to me all the time. It's usually fighting words. In public with the right amount of volume, if I'm in the wrong state of mind, it's them fighting words right there. I don't mind people, but I also worked with the mentally ill, and they say all kinds of crazy shit to you. I mean, they off their rocker. They just say wild shit to you all day, and you have to learn to not let stuff affect you. So people say shit like that all the time. Suck my dick, motherfucker. I'll fucking kill you. I'll shoot up your house. You be like, all right, all right, if you say so. But some people had like a weird thing about it where they thought it was cool that he could even do that. I was like, fuck, this guy sucks dick. That's weird. I don't want to be around that guy. That's weird shit. And people's like, well, it's not gay because it's his own. I'm like, nah, that shit's weird, man. Pass. Pass on that friendship. you know, that's pass on that friendship, brother. Um, uh, right. I am not. I don't want to be bothered with that. No, I'm good. But I said all that because it seems that Tony Khan is the kind of guy who would try if he could. He would try to do that if he could. And that Bloomberg article is trite. I'm not going to read it all, of course, because there's no reason to. But there are some interesting things that have come out of it that I do want to discuss. Just like there's some interesting things that come out of the WWE earnings for Cole and stuff like that I want to discuss. So, 10 minutes of preamble. Let's finally get into it. The number one thing of this whole bonanza is that somebody went anonymous and told Bloomberg anonymously that AEW made $100 million in revenue. And that was shocking to me. I want to, like, a lot of this is shocking to me. Now, some people have said to me again and again that I shouldn't care about this. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. That this was what was said. But I'm about to give you the context, so I will. Yes. The SMD. Yeah. You really, that and spitting, that stuff. Yeah, you can't let that one slide. If somebody told you some shit like that, you got that's. I wouldn't cross the street to do it, but if he was close enough, you gotta do something. You don't want to let him. You can't let him do that. But I think if I was younger, yeah, definitely, I probably would cross the street to do it. But now I can't pursue it. I got permanent teeth, clean record. Don't want to go to jail. Got stuff to live for. But if I was like 18, yeah, I'd stomp the shit out of that dude. I'd try to kill a fucking guy for saying that shit. But so there's a little passage here where Bloomberg says, and I quote, AEW is also considering starting a streaming service, likely through a deal with its broadcast partner, Warner Brothers Discovery. According to a person familiar with the management's thinking, who asked not to be named, last year AEW broke $100 million in annual revenue for the first time, the person says. Oh my God. I was just watching a clip of Wu-Tang, and they was arguing on the bus, and you got used some fighting words against Meth, and I think he called him a bitch ass motherfucker or something like that. And I was just sitting there like, like we've said some really weird shit to people, but I never would have went that far. Bitch, okay, that kind of goes, but bitch ass nigga, bitch ass motherfucker. You're like, what? I'm coming over there at that point. Them niggas was they was on a bus. I don't flip them. But they know each other. Some people you have that relationship with, but there is no suck my nah. Nobody get along that well. Nobody get along that well. They're gonna let that one slide. But anyway, back to the article. They're gonna start a streaming service. But see, the thing that really stuck to me about this and why I feel like talking about it is, why in the world would you stay anonymous and say that they made $100 million last year? Why is that something that an anonymous person gonna put out there? That's what I want to figure out. Like Tony Khan himself, who is celebratory, no, it's not. Oh no. See, I think y'all came after y'all like a generation after us. I think calling somebody a bitch, that's one thing, especially if you're playing sports or something like that. Depending on the context and how well you know them, but there's certain tones in which you call somebody a bitch ass nigga where even if that's your friend, you gotta post up. It doesn't have to be like a blood feud, like telling somebody to suck your dick. That's a blood feud shit right there, man. It's like on site. Like I said, I wouldn't cross the street, but if you was in my vicinity, I'd be like, what was that? What was that last part? Ain't no cops around. But if they made $100 million, if Tony Khan would put that shit on a billboard in Times Square, there's just no way. There's no way he would keep that a secret. So when I saw that it was an anonymous reporter saying, "Oh yeah, they made $100 million," I was like, "That's bullshit." It's bullshit. And that stuck with me so bad. And so many people just kind of like forget it. It's not that big of a deal. Like they sell a lot of pay-per-views, yada yada yada. I'm like, bro, if they made $100 million, Tony Khan, who throws a party because the ratings went up 6%, if they made $100 million, he will be in the middle of Times Square yelling about that. There's just no way they made $100 million. There's just no way. So something tells me that Tony Khan probably put that out there. There's no other. Who else would know something like that? When they talked about his dad in this article, they couldn't even get his dad on the phone. It said Shad Khan didn't even want to talk to them. They're talking about his son's company. He don't even want to talk to him. That's nutty to me. So most people, of course, would say, well, I can see them making $100 million in revenue. They probably spent $150 to make it, but I can see them making $100 million in revenue. And I say, well, their TV deal, according to Dave Meltzer, was worth $175 million. That seems like a bit much for me. But without knowing what their budget is per episode and all that kind of stuff, we don't know how much money they actually made. Like D-Mac said, it's a private company. We'll never actually know. And Tony Khan is very tight with those financial informations. But he would have a fucking parade if they made $100 million. That's real. He would have a parade in the street if AEW made $100 million. So maybe at one point they raised $100 million. And I don't even believe that. But they certainly did not profit $100 million. I can guarantee you that. Right, income without expenses. What were the expenses? And the situation bothered me so much that this became the topic of discussion for the evening. Because I was looking at this, I'm like, there's got to be something else for me to talk about. And then I just kept going like $100 million. It's not real. It's not real. It's a completely. It's money that you could believe that they can make, but I don't believe that they actually did it because there's no evidence that they actually did it. So it's like, where would the money come from? Did they do a quarter of that in pay-per-view? I think they made, I don't know, what their pay-per-views are $50 a piece. They get about 100,000 buys. 50 times 100 is not 50, not 50,000, is it? It's something like that. Now, I just don't see where it would come from. They don't sell enough tickets. They don't sell enough merchandise. And then when they sell t-shirts and stuff like that, the boys sell their own t-shirts and shit. So how is it that AEW made that kind of money? Their TV deal is broken up per quarter. And I'm guessing they get paid quarterly. And it wouldn't make sense for them to say our revenue is $100 million if the TV deal alone is $175 million. Then of course you made $100 million just off the TV deal. But that doesn't make sense. Again, if Tony Khan made $100 million, he would be having a party in the street. His dad definitely would have got on the call and said and talked about what was going on. I don't. They would be a much bigger brand if they grossed $100 million. I'm telling you that right now. So when I saw that, and I saw that somebody was doing this anonymously. So yeah, they made $5 million. So that means at most they probably made $20 million off pay-per-view. At most. That gets them not even a quarter of the way there. They did have 5 pay-per-views last year though, because they had Forbidden Door, which is an extra pay-per-view. So let's say $25 million. just in pay-per-view. Where did the other 75 come from? Where would it come from? Ticket sales? Um, where would it come from? Action figures? The video game is still not released yet. And that's the thing. This article mentions that Tony Khan has spent tens of millions of dollars on AEW Fight Forever. Not just on making the game, but also in marketing the game. But the weird thing is, again, all tight, can't talk about it, can't mention it. But then you have to think about it too. CM Punk is a good person to mention right here. How much money did they actually waste? Not spent, but money that they wasted. In other words, there is money that is spent that you will not get back. Like CM Punk's contract. If he's not selling you any more merchandise or any more your TV ratings or anything like that, how is it that you can afford his contract? That game was supposed to come out for Christmas. Like, that was weird. The game was supposed to be out before Christmas. Bruh, it's February. That game still ain't nowhere near coming out. I'm talking, that game is in developmental hell. Now, the marketing for the game it's been light, but it's been there. They just had Kenny Omega doing some interviews and stuff for the game. I'm sure he got paid for that. There's been some, but then again, they had to spend some more money too because they had to redo the poster to take CM Punk off the poster. I'm really questioning how much people are going to get paid in royalties from this game. Because we know, I don't think the royalties for the games to WWE is as big as it used to be. At least from my understanding, it's not. But what's the breakdown of how much these guys are going to get paid for this game? Because that means Cody's about to get put into the next WWE games. He's about to get a nice little paycheck. But he's also going to be sitting back like, Tony, what's up with Fight Forever? What's up? If they waiting on WWE to not drop a game, they can forget it. WWE is constantly dropping games. They drop mobile games and shit all the time. Like the little card game that they came out with. They had another game, like an RPG type game that I was playing on my mobile phone back when I have spurts of doing things and then I just quit. I went like a month playing nothing but Tetris one day. Like, just out of nowhere, I just played Tetris every day. Like, just do 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 do. This was like last year. Like, I was just playing Tetris all day, and then I haven't touched the game since. So I have like these times. So the WWE had, like, they got this game. I forgot what it was called. I think I probably talked about it on this channel before. You had to like spend real money to get these characters, but you can unlock various characters in the game or whatever. I just had like 2 or 3 weeks when I was obsessed with that game. And I was just playing that joint all the time, and then I haven't looked at it since. That's the question, TN Pyro. What is the fucking roster to the game? Because Tony Khan is constantly signing people, and some of the people that he signed are people who should be in the game. Like, the game has been in development before Danielson got there. Do you then stop, to put Danielson in the game? That also means Adam Cole wasn't in the game either. That means Samoa Joe wasn't in the game either. Like, you feel me? Like, Keith Lee wasn't in the game. So do you stop to put those guys in the game? Or do you just say, it is what it is. Omega, the Bucks, Cody, and we're just going to do our own thing. See, I don't know anything about DLC. All I know is we used to do creator wrestlers. I know they still do it. But I don't get what, like, it's confusing. But we know that the cost for the game has been in the tens of millions. So how in the world did they make $100 million? Where did that money come from? That's what I want to know. That's the thing about being anonymous. I did a rant literally Sunday about being anonymous. And I know that's been a big Jordan Peterson thing lately. It's just kind of a coincidence. I'm not against being anonymous. It's very weird that people can just say stuff and just poof. It's hey, you go out, you go and argue and talk about it. We're not going to add any information to it. Tony Khan's not going to say whether it's real or not. He didn't have to. So now he's just going to throw that stuff out there and let it be out there and just be like, whatever. I'm just looking like, where did that money come from? Your biggest revenue stream is your TV deals. It's worth $175 million. But you spent a lot of money on your roster and big buildings and people are injured and stuff like that. You lose people. They had to suspend the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, suspended CM Punk, spent a ton of money on the video game, marketing and promotion of your pay-per-view events. These silly marketing gimmicks that they do with Bloomberg or whatever, these things cost money. I guarantee you Tony Khan probably paid for this. That's why it was so glowing about AEW. And they spoke about Vince McMahon and that kind of stuff. It's like I don't know. I don't know what the point of that was, but I'm really looking at this thing and saying to myself, AEW. I said it when they started making the game. I don't remember much of what I say. I'm pretty consistent about what I say because I say what I feel. They were growing too fast. They wanted to do too much too fast. I said this and I meant it. Got to take baby steps. Most wrestling companies came out, well, outside of WCW, most wrestling companies, if they had a game, they had one game. I think ECW may have had two. But TNA, in its 20-year history, one video game. One. And it says a lot. You have to grow your brand to get to that point. Now, here's the thing about ECW having two games. ECW sold a piece of their company to Acclaim in order to get those games. That's how that happened. But that's how Acclaim ended up being owed, like, I don't know how much money they were owed, but Acclaim Entertainment was owed like a substantial sum of money by Paul Heyman because they had traded equity. Basically, they gave a piece of the game, a piece of ECW to Acclaim to make the games. That's how I remember them having two games. Otherwise, I only would remember the one because there's only like one that I ever saw in the store. I never saw the other one. I never saw the other one. Of course, ECW games didn't make a profit. Paul was just trying to keep up with everybody else. The issue was he wanted to stay relevant. He wanted to get out there and get in front of everybody else. And I saw that. I saw it when TNA did it too. I was like, they're doing too much. This is going to take forever. And then the TNA game finally came out, and I didn't know any wrestling fan who had ever played it. I don't know anybody. I think somebody here may have played it. TN Pyro says he played the TNA game. I never played it. I'm not going to hold you up. I saw the graphics and everything for it, and I was just kind of like, shrug. I was still playing games at the time, too. I just never had the itch to play the TNA game. Like, even when I was playing wrestling games in the past, I actually did play the first ECW game. But I skipped some games, too. I'm not going to hold you up, because I never had quite a few of the WCW games. Like, most of them, like the early ones, I think I may have played those. What, like my cousins or something like that might have had it. Like, I'm talking like WCW games before, the THQ games. Like, everybody played WCW NWO Revenge or NWO versus the World or whatever. Everybody played those joints. Nitro, the PlayStation games, everybody played those. I'm talking about the WCW games that came out before. They had video games that came out during the era of WWF, like Raw and WWF Superstars and stuff like that. They had games then too. Like the Steiner Brothers was in the games and stuff like that. I played those games. But WWF games were kind of like the king because they always spent tons of money on these fucking things. and was somewhat cutting edge, or at least getting on the front of stuff. But they also followed trends. That's where you got In Your House and you got a WrestleMania arcade game. It was just following the Mortal Kombat trend. And those games, people still like them, even though they're kind of kooky. But yeah, going back to the game for AEW, there's just no way. You know, they're not ready for a video game. It's just, hey, let's do a video game. It's like, do we have a long term roster? And you're like, not really. You know, it's just, it's sad. But I don't know I don't know what they're gonna do. I just don't know where that money came from. Where the money going? That's what I want to know. Where did that $100 million? Where did it come from? Uh, Hardcore Revolution and Anarchy Rules. I think I played the Hardcore Revolution game. I'm pretty sure I played them joints, and they was off the WWF Attitude Engine, because they were Acclaim games, and Acclaim lost the WWF license when WWF jumped to THQ, and they basically did that because everybody loved the WCW games that were on THQ, and so WWF decided they was going to headbutt their way into WCW's deal, got them kicked off, and then stole their producers, their publishers. So that was a nice little web. I enjoyed. I don't know if I told that. Maybe I need to break down that little piece of business on the channel one day. But it was pretty brutal. WWF was still kicking their ass in video game sales, but everybody liked the playability of WCW versus the NWO Revenge and WCW versus the World, or whatever that was. And even though the early SmackDown games were still fun, well, at WWF Attitude, which was the game that was where they had the hands that were like, there's no video, so you can't see the hands, but you know what the hands were like in WWF Attitude. At least D-Mac knows, because he's like in my age group, so he knows like the hands. They would throw punches and they look like chops. So everybody thought those games were fun, but they always thought the WCW games were more fun, because they were in 3D and the guys were bigger. They had like, it was cooler, to have the WCW game at the time. So WWF decided, like around WrestleMania 2000, when they decided to jump ship over to THQ, and that shit blew up. It was huge. Hard to believe that THQ made WWE games for years, and then WWE decided to jump to 2K, which probably wasn't a good idea, because everybody started complaining about the games after 2K, when 2K took over. You know what? See, Def Jam Icons was actually a lot like the really hot WWE, WCW games. That's why they were so good, because they were just like those games. I played the first Def Jam fighting game. That game was fun as shit. I was DMX all day. I was a DMX main. I don't remember much about. I remember that game having a silly storyline too. I just can't believe they stopped making them. Like, why did they stop making them? They should invest in doing that again. Invest in doing it again. There's definitely some rappers that would be 100% down for wanting to be in a game. Ghostface, I know Ghostface was in the original Def Jam games, but you can't tell me that him and 50 Cent and all those guys wouldn't have a blast being in that game. Maybe not 50 Cent. He got an ego, so he probably wouldn't want nobody beating him up in those games. But he had his own video game too. Super Brawl, was that the WCW game title? It might have been. It might have been. See, the thing is about them planning and building and developing the game is they promised that the game was supposed to be out by now. So it's like the game should have, like, they started showing gameplay footage early last year, and then they said it was going to be out before Christmas. So then Christmas came and went, and no game. And now they're barely even talking about the game anymore. So when people are like, "How are you marketing the game? Like, what's the marketing?" It's like there has been some, but it's been very little. They had the AEW games has its own YouTube channel and its own social media and everything. That stuff costs money because you need people to run it, but there's not much to show. There's nothing there. There's nobody's playing the game. Nobody's enjoying the game. And to be quite honest, the longer it takes for that game to come out, the worse it is for them. I'm not even gonna hold you up. If this game had come out 2 years ago, when everything AEW did was hot, I could see it being successful. But today, when people are kind of on AEW, I don't see it being that big. I don't think it making a big enough of a splash. Like I thought it was going. It might make its budget back 2 years ago. Now I'm almost certain it's not going to. I'm almost certain it's not going to make its money back. Now it just took too long. It didn't strike while the iron was hot, and that was part of TNA's problem. They put out a video game, but it was like years after. I think the game came out in like 2011 or 2012 or something like that. Because I know Booker T was in the game, but that's not when TNA was hot. I know that's when they were on national TV, but that's not when people were really loving everything TNA did. It was actually years before that. You know, like that's when during Hogan, of course, you put Hogan in the game. But AEW's video game, I fail to see how it's going to make its money back. Even if everybody who watched the show buys the game, I don't see how that game makes its money back. I don't see it having a long-term strategy for success either. Because even if you get the one game, people are going to quickly get bored with it and want another game. And then it's going to take you 4 years to make another game? Whew. Come on. Come on. THQ went bankrupt. I think you're right about that. I think you're right about that. I don't know when. I think it was in the mid 2000s, right? Like 2008 or 9 or something like that. Oh yeah, then Ukes took over. That's what I was thinking of. Ukes. I think Ukes took over after THQ went under. Stone Mexican got the third Def Jam game was what killed. There was a third Def Jam game. I know about the first two. I played the first one. I heard of the second one. I didn't know there was a third one. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely. That was the thing about the Def Jam games because it had a little bit of everybody in it. It had dudes from some everywhere, but what really got people into the Def Jam games was the aesthetic. Everybody was. You could buy into it. It was at the right time in history when those games started coming out because the rappers were still kind of doing gangster rap, but they were also video gamers, and it was just a fun look to have. I hate Ludacris. I want to beat Ludacris ass. I could beat Ludacris ass in this video game. Fuck him. And I kind of had that feeling. Sometimes I would say fuck Ludacris. I want to beat his ass, and there it is. But I didn't know there was 3 of those games. I thought it was only 2. Well, this goes to show. This goes to show. WG Phil says reporting says that they had issues with the rating because of intergender wrestling and blood. Maybe they should get rid of the intergender wrestling and the blood. But I don't see why the blood would be a problem. Why would the rating be a problem? They're marketing to their own fan base. If you're not going to have blood in your video game, why have blood on your TV? Why? Why do that? The game should be a reflection of the product. The game should reflect the product. That was weird. Let's see. I think what AEW did wrong was again they promised too much too soon. Like D-Mac just said, they overplayed their hand. They wanted to be everything WWE without the effort, without the brand recognition, without the name. And we're going to talk about that in a moment because I'm going to talk about Tony Khan talking about challenger brands. I definitely want to talk about that because I spent a lot of time consuming challenger brand content. But I said it was too soon for them to do a video game. It's a big undertaking, and if your brand isn't strong enough, it'll never work. Video games are expensive to make, and then he put his entire video game in the hands of Kenny Omega, a guy who only played video games, a guy who didn't know the first thing about making any. He only knew about playing them. And Kenny Omega went and spent tons of money on this goddamn thing. And here it is. I think that if Tony Khan was a true businessman, he'd have bailed on that game a long time ago. He probably would have said, look, let's just build to it. And if we have excess income at any point in time, we'll go ahead and do it. But something is telling me, and I hate to be this guy because I don't hate AEW. Something tells me that they actually approached somebody else and pitched the video game rather than the other way around. And that's a difference. That difference is a lot of money too. The difference is expensive. When somebody wants to do business with you, they will come to you and say, hey, I would like a contract for X amount of dollars and we'll produce you a video game. That's licensing. We want to use your licenses or whatever, yada, yada, yada. It's completely different from you approaching them, hey, can you make us a video game? We will pay you X amount of dollars and loan you our licenses or whatever. And then now they have to sit around and figure out how to market this thing they're going to get paid to make. Like I can't imagine anybody was beating down the door to ask AEW to make a video game. It's like nobody knows who you are. Not really. You're known in the wrestling circle. And then they keep getting bad information. Like one of the bad information that they got is that the reason why WWE is so successful is because of the video games. It's like you have that backwards. The reason why WWE video games work is because of the strength of the WWE name. The reason why the early games worked because of Hulk Hogan. You put Hulk Hogan on something, anything, and they've proven this. Lunchbox, arcade game box, book, movie, you put Hulk Hogan in front of it, you can draw at least some money. All right. And that's what they did. They decided to just market to their audience. But they spent a couple of years building up their name first. Building up the stars first, showing you that the stars can make money first. Before they started jumping into video games. AEW started talking about video games. It was on TV for like 2 months. Like this, it was on TV for a short amount of time. They were still halfway losing to NXT sometimes, and they were talking about a video game. I was like, it's way too soon. Way too soon. And Lord knows how much money they spent on that fucking album that they put out. Didn't they just put out an album like last year or something like that? How much? I didn't hear that thing made a profit. So, what's going on? Where did this $100 million come from? That's what I want to know. What were your expenses, sir? Tony Khan, what were your expenses? I don't believe you. You're lying to me. You have to ask the question. If putting the game out around All Out / Grand Slam, what's going to be different at that point in time? AEW was as hot as they were ever going to be when CM Punk came in, and then Danielson and Cole came in. That was the height. That was it. If they'd have dropped that game right then, even if CM Punk was going to be DLC, that game would have made a brick. It made a lot of money. But now, people are kind of like, is CM Punk even in the game anymore? Did they take him out? What's going on? And some people are just losing interest in the whole thing. You know, that's kind of how I am. I've lost interest in the AEW video game. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Really, it seems like something that's never going to actually occur. You know, but they made a lot of promises, and they talked a lot of stuff, a lot of shit, and they're not able to back up most of that stuff. So it's unfortunate. WWF bed sheets, yeah, real. You put Hulk Hogan on anything, man, they just slap his face on it and be like WWF brand do rags or whatever, juice boxes. I had the wrestling buddy. I had the action figures. I wasn't even watching wrestling. I had wrestling action figures. Like that's the crazy thing. I remember being a kid, like 1989. I wasn't even watching wrestling, not regularly. I had a Macho Man. I had a Hulk Hogan. I didn't know where these guys came from, but I had them. When I started watching in like 90, 91, I had everything. I had the wrestling buddies. I had the ring and everything. I had the whole joint. That's when you realize, this shit's real. Mother, give me a Jake Roberts action figure. You feel me? I had an Ultimate Warrior wrestling buddy though. I didn't have a Hogan wrestling buddy. I think I had a Hogan and a Warrior. Because I think somebody got me. They knew I wanted a wrestling buddy. I think my parents got me the Ultimate Warrior, and somebody else got me a Hulk Hogan. Kind of like I don't understand why they stopped making those. Like wrestling buddies are fucking cool. I know Ring of Honor started making them near the end of their run. They started making wrestling buddies. But everybody started doing WWE shit a little bit later. Started making trading cards, and they do everything on a smaller scale. GCW does trading cards on a real small scale. Funko Pops. Now guys are out there funding their own Funko Pops. You could do that. What's the name? Makes his own action figures. Cardona. He paying for his own action figure. So it's a little bit different now, but it's basically people just follow the leader. WWE makes a grip on Funko Pops. Now everybody out here trying to do Funko Pops. Impact trying to do it. The micro brawlers. I think WWE did those first, and then Impact started doing them. I don't know if AEW is doing micro brawlers or not. I think MLW is doing micro brawlers. It's just if you're going to, you get to jump on things. I know WWE is kind of like, hey, let's go, slap our logo on this thing over here and let's see what happens. And then other people just kind of sit back and wait. But it's like, wouldn't it be nice to beat them to the punch every once in a while? Instead of being, responding to, be a leader at some point. We're going to talk about that when it comes to like this challenger brand stuff. But, it's weird. I don't think AEW has a calendar. Well, I think the girls probably have calendars. I don't think AEW as a company has calendars. He said the 80s, early 90s, those bootleg wrestling action figures had fake Hogan heads on them. The Masters of the Universe body mold. I had a He-Man action figure. I had one. I didn't even like He-Man, but that was it. I think Ukes is gone, isn't it? Ukes is dead, isn't it? Yeah, that's real shit right there. When your brand's strong, they bootlegging everything, dog. And there was a lot of bootleg WWF stuff. It still is. There still is. Like I sometimes go to Ollie's or something like that, and you will see like bootleg WWF stuff. Like it's crazy. Like I saw a lot of bootleg like John Cena's and stuff like that. I'd be like, what the hell is this? Heads on backwards. You'd be like, what? Like it's just weird shit. Like it's just weird stuff. But since I know that WWE they jump into weird things now, it's hard to tell what's real and what isn't anymore. Because I'm basically like I don't know what they make anymore. Every time I go to like a store and I go into WWE, it's always some weird shit. Like I didn't know that they had there was some WWE branded thing that I never even knew existed. I'm trying to remember what it was. I want to say Monopoly, but I don't think it was Monopoly. I think it was some kind of board game though. It was some kind of WWE branded board game. And I was like, this can't be real. Because I never heard of it. I'm like, what is this? Was it Pictionary? It was something like that, like a WWE branded board game. But I never saw it before in my life. And it was like in conjunction with like a real live, everybody should know this board game, you know? So maybe somebody else knows. Because I saw it in a bargain bin at one point. I didn't know what the hell that was. Manny faces. uh I had that video game with Starman in it with the pink guy with the blue star on his face. Oh, so Lights had the WWE board game. What is it called? Because I believe I saw it, but I don't know what it's called. I have no idea what it's called, but I saw it. I was just kind of walking by, and I looked at it, and I was like, "These dudes would just put the brand on anything," because I have no idea what this is, and it wasn't expensive either. It was just a thing. I was just kind of looking at this like, how do you even play this? What is this? And I just put it back and walked away and didn't think of it anymore. Like I'm not a memorable. Like I said, I'm a card guy. I'm not really a weird other WWF stuff. I don't really get into it. The name was WWE DVD board game. Hmm. What was it about? Like, what is it about? I thought it was like Monopoly or something like that. That's what I thought. Like I thought they did like a WWE Monopoly or something. I'm pretty sure there is something. There's some kind of WWE branded board game. I'm about to look it up right now while I'm talking about it because I'm almost certain it exists. But I don't know what it's called. Uh, let's see. Yeah, it is a WWE Monopoly. I was right. Dice Masters. Yeah, it was a WWE Monopoly game. I knew it. This is crazy. This is exactly what I was looking at too. This son of a bitch is $42. 40 and Apollo Crews is on the front of it. It's $42. Oh my god, bro. This is nuts. And you can buy the wrestlers? Oh man. Collect 200 salary as you pass go. Keith Lee and shit on this game. Man, this wasn't that long ago. This is this is wild. D-Mac says AEW has the luxury of deep pockets. Kind can cover losses so they can take chances that other companies really don't have the bread to take. Yeah, that's why they was able to jump into the video game stuff while TNA had to wait until Spike TV was willing to pay for it. But still, just because you got the money, you got to think about it. The brand name is not where it was supposed to be. Where making a video game was gonna work. It's just a waste of time and money. You know, like nobody really had like a top wrestler or anything like that. My thing was what they probably should have done is talked about the video game here and there. Maybe it's going to happen, maybe it won't. As soon as they look, Tony Khan knew when CM Punk was coming in. He probably should have put CM Punk into the game and then dropped the game while it was at its height. And that probably would have been the best they could do. The board game is essentially GMO. You purchase wrestlers and try to collect the most championships. WWE Monopoly and other types of board games. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. I didn't expect to see that. I really did. Okay. So Tony Khan, he did 2 interviews where he mentioned being a challenger brand to WWE. Let's talk about that real quick because I want to. It's funny to me because he kind of has an idea what a challenger brand is, but he's not entirely sure. So he says some things that are not entirely true, but it gets you thinking. So here is Tony Khan. He's doing an interview with Wrestling with Mark, whoever this guy is. I think he works for AEW, of course.
For example, like a challenger brand, a good example, Pepsi is the new generation. Pepsi's a challenger brand like AEW. And when I launched this, I was like, okay, I'd like to be the Pepsi of pro wrestling. Would you be interested in that? Everyone said yes. Then they showed me a marketing deck about what it means to be a challenger brand. And the best examples they gave me were like Burger King. What's their marketing? A lot of it is like, hey, McDonald's sucks, guys. Yeah. So that's when people ask why I go out and talk about the competition in wrestling. I mean, that's why, because it was handed down on high to me from the network. For example, like a challenge.
So, I mean, if we take him at face value, then what we get here is that the tribalism in wrestling, the cult-like AEW support, is not in any way a natural thing, but something that the network told him to cultivate. Because he wanted to be a challenger brand. He mentions that multiple times. He says it again in the Bloomberg interview, where he says, it says, quote, as Khan sees it, there's room for two giant wrestling organizations to compete alongside each other globally, not unlike Coca-Cola and Pepsi or McDonald's and Burger King. An easy thing for people to understand is that the idea of a challenger brand, he says, what's Burger King's marketing? It's basically, hey guys, Burger King's great, McDonald's sucks. That's not what a challenger brand really is, though. Now, there are business experts, because that's where I go to for my information on stuff like this. I mean, I'm not saying that, don't listen to Tony Khan, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not going to say that. I'll let you think about whether he knows what he's talking about or not. I'll just say my understanding of a challenger brand does not feature, hey, these guys suck. Now, sometimes taking pot shots is part of the business. Sometimes it is. But let's go through to what some marketing guys say a challenger brand is. So because these people, they would know. I they would know, right? So this is from
being a challenger is primarily about mindset. It's not about a state of market. Being number 2 or 4, 8 in your market doesn't make you a challenger. What makes you a challenger is the mindset you bring to that situation. In particular, it's about having an ambition that is significantly bigger than your conventional marketing resources and being prepared to do something bold and imaginative to close the implications of the gap between those two things. And of course, one of the most significant implications is you're going to have to challenge something. You may certainly have to challenge something about yourself. You may certainly have to challenge practices and behaviors and ways of thinking and self-limiting beliefs you have. You may need to do all of that culturally, but you're certainly going to need to challenge something in the world around you.
So, as he's explaining, this is a marketing channel. It's not that big. It's actually smaller than mine. It's called Eat Big Fish. But I find that their breakdowns of marketing and stuff like that is actually pretty good. Now, he's talking about challenger brands. If you ever seen Gary Vee, he was talking to one of the guys who worked at Pepsi, and Pepsi is huge. And I'm not going to hold you up. I honestly, when I was growing up, I never saw Coca-Cola anywhere. I never saw Coca-Cola anywhere. I didn't know Coca-Cola was the number one brand of, soda in the world. I didn't know that. Growing up, Pepsi was the be-all, end-all. Now, it wasn't until I had like some cousins that come up from Louisiana, they call everything Coke, that I didn't realize how big Coca-Cola was until they came up to the United States, came up to Detroit from Baton Rouge. Coke, what's that red Coke y'all be drinking? Like, red Coke? What the fuck? What the fuck are you talking about? Ain't no red Coke. They were talking about Faygo Red Pop, which got strawberries on the front, but it ain't strawberry flavored. Trust me, it's just red dye. Okay, but Pepsi was around for a really long time. It was around for a really, really, really long time. And I didn't think Pepsi was number 2. I never thought about it in those terms. Like, I never thought about Burger King being number 2 to McDonald's. I never really thought about it in those terms. Like, when you see Burger King commercials, what they do is they talk about the differences between Burger King and McDonald's. Sometimes you will see them make fun of the way a McDonald's hamburger looks in the wrapper or something like that, or something. Occasionally you'll see that, but most of the time they put over their own brand. The flame grilled thing. Like, you will see them copy McDonald's sometimes. Like, McDonald's had a mascot, Ronald McDonald and the Playhouse and all that kind of stuff. Then Burger King had themselves a mascot with, the Burger, the King, and all that kind of stuff. And you'll see that every once in a while. But it was mostly Burger King focusing on what they do differently than what McDonald's does. It's not McDonald's sucks. It is our burgers are better because our burgers are flame broiled and yada, 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 and you're looking at things differently. Like Wendy's, when Wendy's talks about, and I think the guy in the Gary Vee video probably talked about, from Pepsi's perspective, they didn't want to come at Coca-Cola the way that Wendy's comes at other companies. Like, they challenge them on and talk shit about them on social media and stuff like that. He said he didn't want to do that. What they wanted to do was basically increase the relevance of Pepsi's brand. So when he was talking about Pepsi being the official sponsor of the Super Bowl, and they moved to Atlanta. They went to Atlanta, and Atlanta is the home base for Coca-Cola. And he said it was an opportunity for them to not go in there and trash talk Coca-Cola, but to basically take over Atlanta. So they started doing little things like, having special giveaways and different things like that while they were in Atlanta to increase Pepsi's visibility in a place that is mostly a Coca-Cola drinking place. They wanted to go in there and infiltrate and do something different. And then he says they started playing on the second, being second. Like, he says, he said it was pretty funny. Like, they go into restaurants and people would say, you would ask for a Coke and people would say, is Pepsi okay? And he said, like, from a brand perspective, that's really sad because Pepsi's been around forever. They're a multi-billion-dollar organization. Why is it that they're always in second place? But he says, like, they decided to not challenge Coke directly, but to play into it. So that's when they started hiring people to do the "Is Pepsi okay?" commercials. Like, is Pepsi okay? Or, Pepsi okay? And I thought that was pretty clever. That was very clever. It's a smart way of dealing with a problem that comes head on. Tony Khan thinks that challenger brand means I come out and trash talk you all day because that's what we do. And it's like, no, challenger, what they're meaning and what they're telling you is that there needs to be a shift in mindset, right? You need to be able to change what things is. A good challenger brand for wrestling was ECW. Yes, a lot of ECW was WCW sucks, WWE sucks. Ric Flair is an old fool. I hate his guts. Yada, yada, yada. All that crap, right? But mostly what changed things was ECW's approach to the business. Okay? The hardcore stuff, the blood and the guts and all that kind of crap, right? But it was the non-corporate way of producing pro wrestling, where things were not beautified. It was low budget, sometimes on purpose. Low budget by design. It was made to be cultish. It was made to be small and insular. But ECW took the opportunities when WWE was going to give them that platform. ECW took it. Yes, experience the difference. Showing people This is what they do. This is what we do. A lot like what Burger King does, right? Burger King shows you the flaccid, weak, small hamburger wrapped in paper. You know, it was under a hot light for 2 hours, and then, you know, you wrapped it up and gave it to you, versus the nice grill marks on the Whopper that they flipped over and all that kind of stuff. You know, that was different. You know, this is what we do. You know, this is what they do. This is what we do. AEW doesn't have that kind of approach. Everything about them is, let's just attack WWE. And TNA did this a lot too. You know, I used to watch TNA, and I think they did literally a commercial right after New Year's Resolution 2005. I remember this joint clear. I don't remember shit, so you know, this was something if I remembered it. And I believe it was an episode of Impact, or was it a commercial or something like that, where they said that, you know, come watch a real pay-per-view or something like that. And I was just kind of like, excuse me? You know, like, TNA, you're not competition. Go sit down. But it was like, but TNA was legitimately trying to do something different. You know, 6-sided ring, focusing on smaller wrestlers. You know, it was still very focused on what was going on in the middle of the ring as opposed to things outside the ring. But it was a different presentation. You know, when you look at Lucha Underground, vastly different presentation to WWE or any other wrestling promotion, because Lucha Underground was legitimately a television show that had wrestling on it. That was it. You know, the matches were edited just like a fight scene in a regular TV show would be edited, or a movie or something like that. There was a lot of outside the ring stuff. Like, there was no, and you see this from like Cornette and all these guys, is like, why is the cameras everywhere? It's like, there was no question in Lucha Underground about why the cameras were anywhere. You know, these guys knew they were being watched. They didn't give a shit. They were, you know, you could hear other people's voices on the phone. Like, you could hear both sides of the conversation. I was like, I picks up the phone. You know, there were murders. People was getting eating. You know, it was kind of, one of the wrestlers was an undercover agent. Like, it was some really over the top stuff. But Lucha Underground never took a shot at anybody. They just did their thing, and they presented wrestling in an incredibly different way. And it was wild. You know, but it also died out quick because it was very expensive to do that stuff. They didn't have the financial backing, and it was on El Rey Network. It wasn't going to work anyway. It was a small network. But AEW is, it's Bellator at this point. You know, agent, not Asian. He was Hispanic, actually. I think he was. But yeah, you know, if you're drunk, Bellator will do. You know, if you are drunk and you're like, I just want to watch some people fight, then Bellator will work. You know, Bellator is good enough, because from a distance, the average person doesn't know the difference between Bellator and UFC. You know, they don't know. So if they see two guys in a cage that kind of look the same, you know, that's fine. It works for them. Even though, you know, UFC has the trademark on the octagon. To the average person, there is no real difference. So Bellator looks just like UFC. It's not really a challenger brand. It's just kind of an addendum. If you like UFC, you should like this too. That's what AEW is, as far as I'm concerned. It's not a challenger brand. It's not doing things that is wildly different from what WWE does. You know, they still have skits, just not as long. They still have promo segments. They do focus more on wrestling, but that's about it. That's the big difference. The pyro, the music, you know, they even have some of the same fucking guys on the roster. You know, so a lot of it is the same. That's not really being a challenger brand. You know, what is the brand of AEW anyway? You should, Darren Gordon-Hill nailed it. You should watch AEW because you like wrestling. If you like wrestling, you're already watching it, you know. But WCW, legitimate challenger brand, where the big boys play, right? Whatever that's supposed to mean. But you know, it was different because WWF content was supposedly for children, right? So where the big boys play is like a more mature product, and at the time it was. Now this was after the White Castle of Fear. It was after that, because that White Castle of Fear fits perfectly into 1994, 1995 WWF. But 96, where the big boys play, it was different. It was a different product. It was different way of looking at things. They had divisions. WWF never had a division before. Like, they had them in the 70s or in the early 80s, but they never had a division before. Now they got cruiserweight divisions. Far more diverse roster. They were doing storytelling that was a lot more, on a different level. That I can see that being a challenger brand. And I understand that. I just don't see AEW being what Tony Khan thinks it is, because to me, he doesn't do enough things that are different. His idea is McDonald's sucks. Instead of McDonald's does burgers this way, we do burgers this way, and you should like burgers that are made this way. Again, Burger King makes flame broiled hamburgers, right? McDonald's does not. I think the quarter pounder is flame broiled, but quarter pounders are expensive, more expensive than the Big Mac or whatever. The meat patties and the Big Macs or whatever, that's just frozen stuff that's been reheated, right? It's still pretty good when you're drunk or just starving. But Wendy's markets themselves differently. Our buns have no seats. White Castle, all of these different people, they market their product differently. It's a different presentation. What AEW wants is the presentation that they are, the underdog. Even though they say challenger brand is not about being number two, you're almost guaranteed to be number two if you're a challenger brand, because otherwise you're the status quo. But I think that if there is a real challenger brand that existed within the last 10 to 15 years, it was NXT. NXT was the last true challenger brand for WWE, because NXT was completely different from Raw and SmackDown. It was smaller, more intimate. They liked being in that smaller building. They still had the same cult-like audience. It was dark. They didn't have pyro. It was all contained. NXT was far more contained than, a regular WWE product. They showed you that you could work and you could sell out buildings and stuff like that without all of the trimmings and all the stuff that WWE did. All AEW did was come in and steal NXT's audience, but utilize WWE's production stuff. A lot of it is the same. And again, a lot of the people are the same. It's not different enough. Like, to me, Coke and Pepsi are two different things. I don't know when the last time I've had a Coca-Cola. I don't think I've ever drank a whole bottle of Coke. I don't think I've ever had a whole bottle of Coca-Cola. But people who drink that stuff, like my mom is really big on like Pepsi and stuff like that. She can tell the difference between a Pepsi and a Coke. The way NXT did their stuff was different. The way the shot to camera shows, the way the shows were camera, the way the shows were shot was different. The talent that they put on TV is different. The appreciation for different types of storytelling, different. WWE was all about the glitz, the glamour, the sizzle, all that kind of stuff. NXT was about the steak, you know, more realistic storylines, not so much in the over the top magic shit. Even when they had the opportunity to do so, they didn't do it. Which is arguably why Aleister Black and Bray Wyatt probably worked better in NXT, because they didn't do too much of the Aleister Black is kind of Dracula, but not. And then Bray Wyatt, controls, 12-year-olds. They didn't do all that stuff either. But when you're doing something that is very different from what the outside of the norm, I get why you would call yourself a challenger brand. But AEW doesn't do enough different, They even hired former WWE production guys. It's like, how are you a challenger brand? You're doing it almost the exact same shit. You're playing catch up. You're not doing anything different. What are you doing different? The trios titles, I guess, is different. It's new, but that's not anything that hasn't been done in wrestling before. There were companies that fucking World Class had a 6-man title. People are doing it like you're not doing anything different. At least Impact, when they were at their hottest periods, well, not their hottest, because that's when Hogan was around. He got rid of the 6-sided ring. But when they first got people attention, it was because of the 6-sided ring. What they did looked different. It's weird that even on the marketing, it doesn't seem like Tony Khan is doing a very good job. His marketing idea is, we're Burger King, McDonald's sucks. It's like you don't have a strong enough brand for that. You don't get it. When AEW started having pay-per-views, people would look at the receipts and they would say WWE. You're like, Darren Miles, that's not even a really good question. What's their Starcade? What is their big show of the year? Some people will say it's All Out. Okay. Is it really? What about do they put more effort into All Out than any other pay-per-view? Do they spend more money on All Out than any other pay-per-view? What about, you always knew when WWE was going all out, not to use that, but they were spending more money on something. WrestleMania was always in the biggest arena that they could find. A stadium, if they could get it. Madison Square Garden, the literal home of the WWE. Whatever they could do. That would be their big show. And it seemed like AEW had something there with the Arthur Ashe shows. That was going to probably be their big show. It's going to be a TV show, but it was going to be a big show in an arena that nobody else used before. And that seemed like, at least for the first year, that was something that people were really going to be interested in. But it doesn't seem like it anymore, Now all these shows seem like, because Tony Khan has this idea, this belief that, just by having 15-minute bangers, quote unquote, they're challenging WWE. They don't care about that shit. I mean, and that's the thing that really kind of blows my mind about his marketing idea, is that he thinks that by having more wrestling, he's challenging WWE. It's like, bro, literally everybody for the last 50 years has challenged Vince by the same way. We do wrestling. Our wrestlers really wrestle. Our wrestlers really wrestle. Weird thing. Brian Danielson, I'm so sorry. He was in this Bloomberg article saying that Vince McMahon asked him, what does AEW do better than us? And Danielson says that he told Vince, they focus more on what's going on in the ring. Your show is like a wrestling show without the wrestling. And I'm pretty sure Vince looked at him and said, dude, I didn't need you to tell me that. Okay, like, I wanted some real shit. Like, are they doing something that we're not doing? It's like, yeah, they're focusing on the wrestling. And Vince is probably like, what? You know how many times I've heard that shit? Heard that shit about Ring of Honor, heard that shit about TNA, heard that shit about NWA, heard that shit about WCW, heard that shit about ECW, heard that shit about everybody. He do not care about about you having better fucking matches. He don't care. Nobody gives a fuck. That's a swing and a miss. That means that your brand is weak. Brand weak. All you know for is wrestling. Got to do more. That's what Bischoff was a genius at. And people, they hate Bischoff now. But Bischoff was a genius at doing different shit. Getting WCW's name out there by doing outlandish stuff like Jay Leno or Dennis Rodman or whatever. And not just one-offs, but repeated, bringing them into the fold. You know, Rodman just wasn't a guy who showed up. Rodman was a regular NWO character. You know, like he was regular on the show. AEW, it doesn't need to be a celebrity, but I guess the Rick Ross, if he makes another appearance or whatever. So far he's made 2 appearances, both have been pretty good. But what's the identity of AEW? What's their they don't have a tagline. They don't have a something that really grabs attention. You know, just we do more wrestling. And I'm sure Vince just was like, okay. That's probably why he started firing people. Like, they do more wrestling, huh? Okay. You know, go wrestle all these motherfuckers, you know, go do your thing. They're not making stars. They have so many people who have talent, you know, but their wrestling first mindset is just damaging. You got to be flexible. You know, some people do suck in the ring, but they might have something else going for them. Good personality, you know, great character, marketable. You know, like somebody like a Danhausen. Like I'm hearing Danhausen sells a lot of T-shirts and stuff when it comes to AEW. People like Danhausen. Why aren't we doing more with Danhausen? Now, I'm not saying, because I know Orange Cassidy is similar. I'm not saying we should have 15 minutes of Danhausen doing promos and shit. But if it's, you know, the marketing dollars is in Danhausen is selling a bunch of merchandise and all that kind of stuff. Let's see, you know, what's going on with them that we can get people to be interested in Danhausen. Let's put them in a storyline. You know, even if it's not a big one. You know, let's see what we can do, what we can get out of this thing. You know, let's put them in a recurring thing on the show. Like WWE would do that occasionally too. They will find somebody and they'll put them like in a recurring thing on the show, like Fandango and what the fuck, Tyler Breeze. They're doing the Fashion Files. Like they would go out there and lose in 30 seconds, but then they would do a 2-minute Fashion Files and be super over, and people would act up when they came out. They didn't wrestle for shit. They were doing character work, and that shit was working. Like nobody cared about their matches. Who gave a damn? Nobody cared if they were ever the tag team champions or anything like that. People liked them because they were fun and they were funny. And now we see WWE is leaning more into that with Maximum Male Models too. They're starting to do that. Like Mace and Mansoor, that was not going to work. The idea wasn't to make them something that was super interesting and world tag team champions and, you know, they're to be the next Steiner brothers. That wasn't going to work. The idea was to create something with them that would make people want to see them again and again and again and again, even when they're not wrestling. You know, that's what they used to do with the Street Profits. They used to have the Street Profits do the commercials and the ad breaks and all that kind of stuff, just so they can be on TV even if they're not working. In AEW, if you're not working, you're not even on TV. Look at Miro, for Christ's sake. T-Mac thinks that the Arthur Ashe show should be a bigger deal. He said he went to both of them. Maybe use the venue as for a major pay-per-view, hold a week of events around in New York City, hit up local media. That's basically what they do every time they go to Arthur Ashe. They really should just combine the Arthur Ashe and All Out concepts, and much like how WrestleMania used to be at Madison Square Garden, just do All Out at Arthur Ashe every year. You know, that's or something like that. In which but they got to do more than just we're going to have wrestling matches at the wrestling show at the wrestling event, because people have been doing that shit for 500 years. They ain't no different. Yeah, they don't have no identity. You ask the question, like, what the fuck are they? It's just basically, if you are a dweeb fan of Ring of Honor or New Japan, you'll like this. That's the identity of AEW. The identity of AEW is looking at the crowd. There's some women there, but not a lot. It's mostly dude bros in tight t-shirts, wearing weird hats and looking weird. It's actually girl repellent. It's family repellent. It's weird. It's just a weird product. It's just weird product for weird people. They need to get mainstream. I don't know how they would do it. I don't know what they could do, because they would be the second. They would have to do something that only Tony Khan can do. Like if Tony Khan could, let's say, get a Super Bowl commercial because he's got billions of dollars. If he was to take some of that and, like we talked about before, get a wrestling match at a playoff game or something like that, which he probably could have done because he owned the Jacksonville Jaguars. He probably could have said, how about we present an AEW wrestling match, and play preseason or the halftime of the Jacksonville Jaguars football game. That would have got a lot of people's attention on AEW. Guarantee you Vince would have paid attention to that. He would have been like, what the fuck did they do? Why aren't we doing that? And somebody would have came and told him that, he'd been like, what the fuck? That's awesome. Why aren't we doing that? But if you're like, oh yeah, man, they're going to wrestle in a goddamn tennis stadium, you're like, who cares? Who gives a shit? Yeah. He loves wrestling so much. I feel so bad for him. Wrestling does not love him, even though the fans like him. I don't know, man. That's a good statement though for Darren Gordon-Hill. They'd have to want to be mainstream. I don't think they do. Like, they like the idea of the wrestlers having side gigs. They were bragging about Britt Baker being a dentist. They're still talking about that. She's been a dentist for like 3 or 4 years now. That's the thing about the Bloomberg article that kind of made me roll my eyes. It's like a lot of this stuff they've been talking about. They've been talking about this shit for years. I believe that they've had a Forbes article. They've had other sort of financial articles. And it's all been the same stuff. Finally, WWE has a competition. And each time they did this, AEW was actually lower and lower on the totem pole. Like, literally, what this article was marketed as AEW is ascending while WWE is in chaos. Literally 3 hours later, WWE is like, we made $1.5 billion last year or some shit. And then everybody's kind of looking like, these dudes is doing anonymous bragging about making $100 million with no evidence whatsoever and no way of anybody being able to sit down and break that number and make that number make sense. But then they come out with an article that they probably paid for, which we're being honest, to talk about WWE being in chaos because Vince McMahon is back, only for a WWE stock price to be high as hell and for them to turn around and make $1.5 billion last year. And that to be like the public thing. And then NXT is doing a pay-per-view this Saturday. The Royal Rumble was the most watched Royal Rumble event of all time. Literally Saturday, last week, 6 days ago, 6 or 7 days ago. Like, none of this makes sense. It's not good. But it's only something that somebody who don't know shit about wrestling would let slide. So I'm not even mad at the writer for writing what she wrote, because it was a woman who wrote it. She doesn't know shit about wrestling. She doesn't know anything about wrestling. Well, how the hell would she know? Like, you would think just doing a modicum of research, you would have saw how successful the Royal Rumble was. You would have saw WWE's earnings reports and all that kind of stuff and said, oh, they're not losing any money, so they're not in complete chaos. Now, people are filing lawsuits, which we knew was going to happen. That's why I don't talk about it. But, because Vince returned and that did kind of ruffle some feathers, but they're not in chaos. They're chugging along nicely. The corporate isn't doing this, tossing and turning around, but they're mostly doing what they do. They're mostly fine. It's AEW that needs the help. AEW has a guy sitting at home. He's been sitting at home since fucking August or something like that. No mention of that. No mention that 3 of their top stars were suspended for 2 months. No talk about that at all. It's weird, man. I don't know, man. It's $100 million is a lot. $100 million is, of course, a lot of money. My question is, where did it come from? I guess if you take in pay-per-view and maybe in-house merchandise, like maybe the merchandise in the building, they probably made a lot of money off that. I don't know if their merchandise, like their replica championships or anything like that, makes a lot of money. We don't know. We have no idea. WWE only makes things public when they're bragging about it. But AEW, I'm telling you, if they'd have made $100 million, they would have told everybody. That shit would have been in every financial newspaper in the world. Tony Khan would wear a T-shirt that says we made $100 million last year. There's no way. He'd have mentioned it in every tweet. It'd probably be a signature in his email. AEW made $100 million. It's just random, stuff in his signatures. Tony Khan. And what really kind of blows my mind, this really fucks with me. Like I read the AEW house rules thing. Like, I didn't read all of it, but I was skimming through it, and it says Tony Khan was the CEO, president, and head of creative. And I'm just kind of like, why don't you just give yourself some more jobs? You're CEO, president, head of creative, chief popcorn popper, vice president of television production. Like, just give yourself all the fucking jobs. Why don't you? Just say you're the CEO, and that's it. It's just CEO and head of creative. Vince never called himself the head of creative. Everybody knew who the boss was. Come on. You're the fucking head of creative. What kind of shit is that? CEO. You shouldn't be the CEO and the president, And I also realized that that's what they hired Jeff Jarrett for, was to do house shows. Ain't that about a bitch? We're going to hire Jeff Jarrett to do house shows. Social media manager. What a stupid man. Stupid, dumb man. All right, let's move on to WWE making more money. And the Cinnamon Toast Crunch match that I think people are talking about. So this is where it came from. It came from the Hollywood Reporter. Now, around the same time that WWE was releasing their earnings from last year, Hollywood Reporter put out an article. There was some interesting pieces in there. So Hollywood Reporter, this is what's this guy's name? His name is Stemmel. I think he's a vice president of something from WWE. He says, when you think about putting WrestleMania on, we're going to be showing across millions of households on Peacock. We're also going to have a social media presence. We're also going to have a post press conference. There's going to be sponsored this year. You saw that with Mountain Dew at Royal Rumble. We're going to have that again at WrestleMania. It's on YouTube and it's on TikTok and on Facebook. We're going to have a myriad of opportunities to tell a brand story across different spectrums with different voices. So I think when we approach brands, we want to make sure that holistic picture is in place. We're looking for that audience overlap. Then oh God. So it continues, and a piece of that sponsorship puzzle for the WWE in recent years has been brand integrations. At the Royal Rumble last week, there was a, quote, Mountain Dew pitch black match, which took place in near darkness. And Stimmel suggests that there will be, quote, surprises at WrestleMania as well, specifically calling out a new sponsor, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. He says, quote, I don't want to give away too much, but it'll be around a match. And the sponsorship of that match and what they'll be able to bring to that match, he says, so we're going to do things that fit inside of our storyline as well. They're going to do what people are calling a Cinnamon Toast Crunch match. Let me tell you that WWE is going too far. All right. Like we tout the money that they made quite a bit. They said that they're looking to make $14 to $15 million just on WrestleMania sponsorships. Maybe that might be the case. But a Cinnamon Toast Crunch match, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with this? That's what I don't. How is that even going to make sense? Like, there's got to be something creative here. I'm talking like something super creative. Because this is going to get, look, a lot of people hated the Mountain Dew pitch black match. They hated it. I don't blame them for it. I haven't watched that match since. Like, I've gone back and watched bits and pieces of the Royal Rumble. Like, I watched both the Royal Rumble matches and I watched Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns. I liked all of that stuff on more on the second watch. That pitch black match, though, I haven't watched it again. But I'm not sure what you even do, in a Cinnamon Toast Crunch match. Like, now, what TN Pyro is doing here, this is what makes sense. Cinnamon Toast Crunch presents a whatever kind of match. But they're talking about brand integration. They're talking about changing the matches. What do we do? Would it have to be like a cinnamon street fight? Cinnamon. Somebody on Twitter said, tables, ladders, and crunch. You're gonna have to get knocked into a vat of brown milk, filling with cinnamon milk. Is that what it's gonna be? Like, what are they doing? What is going on here? Now, this blew my mind. But it blew my mind. Now, right after I really kind of looked at that and said, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, bro, what are we doing here? Like, no, let's not get it fucked up. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is like the best cereal ever. It's phenomenal. All right. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the shit. But it ain't got nothing to do with like wrestling. Like it really got nothing to do with wrestling. Like, if it was TNA or something like that, it'd be like Cinnamon Toast Crunch on a pole. You have to dig into the Cinnamon Toast Crunch to get like brass knuckles or something like that. Or it's like a feast or fired. Like, you either win a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch or you're fired. Either you're on a lifetime supply of Cinnamon Toast Crunch or you're fired. I don't know. Just have like why not, they did it with like Crown Jewel, right? Like the Crown Jewel, they did, what was that, the Best in the World trophy or the Saudi Cup or whatever the fuck it is they did the last time. Why not just do that this time? Just have Cinnamon Toast Crunch sponsor like the Women's Battle Royal or something like that. And the winner gets some kind of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, branded trophy or whatever the fuck. You know, like it doesn't need to be cringe. Like it does not need to be cringe. You know, so that's what I'm tripping on. Like can't go. He said I didn't know Cinnamon Toast Crunch had so much stroke. you were not familiar with their game. I'm guessing it's going to be they're just trying to work with General Mills. That's all it is. You know, they're just trying to work with General Mills, which is like a top cereal company. I don't know if it's bigger than Kellogg, but it's pretty big. So I Googled Cinnamon Toast Crunch because King Mike's World. Cinnamon Toast Crunch popcorn. They make Cinnamon Toast Crunch popcorn now. This is ridiculous. The popular cereal from General Mills is now available as Cinnamon Toast Crunch popcorn at Sam's Club, according to an Instagram post from an unaffiliated fan account. Oh, hey, Sam's Club. ABC, always be Cinnamon Toast Crunching. Cinnamon Toast Crunching is one word. The post caption reads, which was shared on Monday for its 102,000 followers. What is this? This is from 2021. They have popcorn, Cinnamon Toast Crunch popcorn. So yeah, they got. Oh, wait a minute. General Mills CEO, breakfast cereal still number one in the U.S. What the fuck they got? Is it bigger than Kellogg? Because I'm trying to figure out how strong is this brand. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because I too am sitting here considering how Cinnamon Toast Crunch has such big balls. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. No. Wait, somebody's talking.
The biggest food manufacturers in the world. The Minneapolis-based company owns some of the most well-known food brands, including Pillsbury, Betty Crocker. The company recently was named to Forbes and Just Capital's Forbes Just 100 list, which showcases companies that are doing right by their shareholders. Joining me right now is General Mills Chairman and CEO, Jeff Harmening. And Jeff, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the program.
Huh?
So we just got the jobless numbers out. Jeff, from your standpoint, knowing really...
Oh, this is from fucking 3 years ago. Well, 2 years ago. Wow. Cinnamon Toast Crunch popcorn. Well, look, I guess they could have a match then, I guess. My thing is, why can't we do like what they did with Old Spice? You know what I'm saying? Like, with Old Spice, they created a whole new character. There was like a run of commercials that they did. It was real fun, silly stuff with the Old Spice Night Panther thing. It was pretty nice. It didn't interfere with the product too much. And then they started doing like the hydro water, where there was like special skits just for that. And now they're elevating where they're selling matches. You know, now they're just doing matches. Like, what wrestler wants to be a part of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch match? Now, it's probably going to be at WrestleMania, so it's not going to matter. You're probably just going to be like, fuck, I'm on the card. Who cares? But it's going to be Dolph Ziggler, isn't it? Dolph Ziggler's going to be in the Cinnamon Toast Crunch match, isn't he? Ever since he did that KFC thing, I don't put nothing above Dolph now. He's going to be swimming around in cinnamon dust and milk. Hopefully it's skim milk. I don't want him to get constipated or anything like that. He doesn't like a kind of guy who eats carbs. What the fuck? Otis. I'm glad we all agree Dolph Ziggler's going to be in this stupid match. This match is going to be 3 minutes of some of the worst shit ever. It ain't going to sell one box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but it's going to be funny. I love Cinnamon Toast Crunch, legit. Like, I fucking love Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I wish I had some right now. I'm not even going to hold you up. I wish I had some right now. Unfortunately, I do not. But I don't know about this match idea, man. This is dumb. It's just dumb, man. Oh God. They're gonna find some. It's probably gonna be Maximum Male Models or something like that in a Cinnamon Toast Crunch match. It's gonna be some comedy people, man. I think they could have did the Mountain Dew thing under with different people, and it probably would have been better. Or under a different circumstance, probably would have been better. But they just going full on matches now, dog. They going hard. They're going hard. So now my question was: now we talked. If you are, no, I'm not a big fan of Tricks. I'm not a big Tricks guy. If there was some talk over the earnings calls, maybe over a year or so ago, that WWE was having a difficult time getting sponsors for their product, and that the sponsorships have fallen far behind rather what UFC and other sports leagues do. Especially since WWE has more fans than UFC, and really in reality it has more fans than the NFL, which is the number one sport in the country of the United States. WWE has more fans internationally than the NFL does and domestically. But they don't have the same sponsorship revenue. They don't make the same amount of money off of their television deals. So people was kind of like, okay, well, WWE is a huge product. How is it that they don't make a lot of money off sponsors? Like, what are they doing wrong? And then people started thinking it was Stephanie. They were like, well, clearly Stephanie's retarded. She don't know what she's doing. So, because she was the chief brand officer at the time, and that's when people started coming out saying that she wasn't good at her job. So, but they started doing these quote integrations right around the time Stephanie was there, because she was the one who came up with the water segment that everybody pissed on when it comes to Xavier Woods. All that was under her administration. When he came out dressed like Razor Ramon, that was Stephanie, and she was talking about how great that was. The zombie match, and she talked about how great that was. Because WWE doesn't care if you actually like this shit. They only care that you're watching this shit. So, no doubt, the question is, was Stephanie really bad at her job? And they couldn't get that stuff because of her. I formulated a pretty good theory that I thought it was Vince. That, people don't just, brands are skittish about partnerships with other brands. So Vince McMahon and all of his stuff, him just being him, people didn't want to do business with him. So maybe that's why, the sponsorships were kind of slow. And Stephanie mentioned it during the conference call that there were some business opportunities that were slowed up because Vince was still around. And then as soon as he left, those situations cleared up. And now they're doing huge money on sponsorships again. Not huge money because it's still not anywhere near what UFC is doing. But it's more than they were doing before. And now, Vince is back. Is that going to affect their sponsorships again? So we got to think about, like, what's causing the uptick in sponsorships? Was it that the company seemed like they were nice and clean now that Vince was gone? Was it, Stephanie actually is good at her job? Who knows? There's just no way of knowing. But it's an interesting scenario. It's an interesting question to ask. Why all of a sudden the uptick in sponsorships? The Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, man. They're gonna do that on every event now, aren't they? Now I'm pretty sure that they're going to get an absolute grip, like a whole grip, if they're selling a match at WrestleMania, because that's got to be a prime spot, isn't it? At least you would think so. I don't know if that's the case, but you would think so. But Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I don't know, man. I hope that Cinnamon Toast Crunch match ain't real. I hope it don't actually occur. I hope the guy was just talking. I hope he's just talking, and Triple H looks at him with the stern, disappointed dad face and tell him no. we're not doing a Cinnamon Toast Crunch match, but it might be out of his hands. It might be marketing and promotion, the corporate and all those guys will tell him, like, look, come on, come on. King Mike's World says, I don't know. Vince has been around forever. He probably formed a lot of relationships that people took for granted. I think that he definitely did. And I think sometimes people get the idea, and to be quite honest, when Vince came back, I said, man, he wouldn't have come back if certain people hated him. He wouldn't have come back. If there was any plan that, unless that was part of his plan, that he so hated that he knew people weren't going to buy the company as long as he's part of it, maybe that's the plan. Or maybe the plan is that he does want to sell it, and the people he wants to sell it to are better off talking to him than talking to anybody else. He knows them better. Look, he cultivated all these relationships. That's going to be hard to move on. Like, I'm telling you, the only way to move on is for him to fucking die. That's going to be the only way. Didn't AEW have like a Cracker Barrel match or something like that? Where they had like literally barrels in the ring. Oh, see, cringe wrestling, man. Cringe wrestling. Oh my God. I miss the days of just wrestlers doing silly commercials. Like, just do a silly commercial, man. We don't need to have, the official Colgate wrestling match. We don't need this. All right? No. WWE really gonna be fucked when they start doing commercials for like Big Pharma, the the Moderna on a pole match or some shit like that. Moderna Massacre, whatever stupid kind of shit they would get money from Big Pharma to do. Top Dog says, what do you think is the future of wrestling? Will it get more niche or will it experience another boom period? It's hard to tell, because you never really know what's going to catch on with people. But I think ultimately, in order for there to be a quote boom period, what you need is the right situation of stars and cultural relevance. Like, WWE has stars. They have people where they're on TV. More people watch TV. More people watch the TV while they're on TV, but they're not necessarily culturally relevant. Roman Reigns is probably, and he'll probably be more culturally relevant when he leaves, like John Cena was. But he's not that culturally relevant right now. Like, now, there's more people, who know who he is and know his shtick now that he has one. The whole acknowledge me and all that kind of stuff. There's more people who are getting on the Roman Reigns train. A couple of years ago, he was doing believe that, and people was kind of like, eh. But now the whole acknowledge me, the tribal chief, the head of the table. More people are kind of really getting on board with that. But cultural relevance is an important thing. You got to be seen as being a cool brand, an interesting brand, or a brand that speaks to somebody. WWF in the 80s had Hulk Hogan. There was WrestleMania. It was fun and it was marketed to children, but adults could, enjoy it because there's still kind of mature storylines. Then in the early part of the 90s, it got very childish. The brand was tainted because of, the Ring Boy scandal and steroids and all that kind of stuff. Then they changed their identity in like 97, attitude, played more into the rock music crowd, a little bit grittier product, a lot more mature product. Stone Cold Steve Austin was a guy around the same time. Walker Texas Rangers on TV. They played wonderfully into a certain part of cultural America with the worker boss sort of storyline where Steve Austin was constantly bumping heads against the man. So everybody can understand that. Everybody can appreciate that. Everybody hates their boss. Wish they could fight and speed up their boss. Steve Austin was perfect for that. Cena was great for that last little bit of hip hop, bringing in the hip hop generation. They're the white kids who loved rap music growing up, even though I don't know. I've never heard John Cena talk about rap music. Like I've never heard of John Cena talk about rap at all. You know, I'm not even sure John Cena actually listens to rap. But Eminem was selling a ton of records, so they had an Eminem style wrestler on the roster, and he pushed the boundaries, but he also was very much within the realm of what Vince wanted from the way a guy looks and the way a guy can present himself. They almost died a death with the Benoit stuff, so that led to a lot of cultural shifts with them focusing now more on children and wanting to be a family product. And that's kind of where we've been for a while, which means a lot of the edginess from it has been removed. That's also been done to sort of get sponsorships and get business relationships and stuff like that. What are they willing to do now to become culturally relevant? And I'm going to tell you what it is, and you're not going to like it. In order to be culturally relevant today, WWE would have to go full woke. It would have to be Bianca Belair doing, promos in the middle of the ring, talking about the white male patriarchy and all that kind of shit, because that's what's in vogue today. When New Day's, doing the Mao fist in the ring and the gay pride stuff, which pretty much killed Finn Balor's career at, what was that, WrestleMania 34 or whatever that was, 35 or something like that. It was 34, I think it was in New Orleans. That's the kind of stuff they would have to do in order to be culturally relevant today. Either that or they have to go in the opposite direction. And that's being, culturally, quote unquote, insensitive and actually challenging mainstream culture, which is what WWE used to do. They used, that's what Vince did in the 90s. That was, the Attitude Era challenged mainstream American culture. But that's because that's what everything did at the time. That's what music did at the time. That's what movies did at the time. They challenged mainstream cultural norms. What do you do now? Because today, if you take a cue off of, and look, a lot of these things are woke, but they're not really all that successful. Big movies, they get Oscars or Oscar nominations, but they're not necessarily successful. Kendrick Lamar, they talk about people try to brainwash me into listening to Kendrick Lamar again. It's like, yes, he's successful, but look at the cost of his success. He has to make songs about his auntie being a man or some shit. Is WWE willing to make that? I mean, you already had Titus O'Neil go on television talk about WWE as a safe space. That's what people want to hear. That's what people want to hear nowadays. That's what, that's what these people want. They want the journalist class to win. For everybody that's considered to be problematic, whether they're just right wing or they're like, it's one thing if it was Vince and he says like, oh well, look, we could just get rid of this one guy because of all these rape accusations, sexual assault accusations, whatever. Even if he didn't do it, it's just a bad look. Okay. But then it trickles down to, let's get rid of Lacey Evans because she said something we don't like about food or autism. Let's get rid of Karrion Kross because we think he's a Trump supporter. Same thing with Nikita Lyons. She's a Trump supporter, so we need to get rid of her. It's like that kind of shit is what they would have to do to become culturally relevant, quote unquote. And it would kill their product. Because you would be actually buying into all of the horseshit that people hate about modern day American politics. People would hate this stuff. People are not a fan of it. It doesn't work for Marvel. It doesn't work for DC. It's not working for Disney. It doesn't work for Netflix. It's not working for Hulu. It ain't working for Paramount. It ain't working for Warner Brothers. It ain't working for nobody. Nobody is going woke and coming out better. And Nick Khan's not an idiot. The only people who continue to make money, despite being woke as fuck, is the NBA and the NFL. And that's because it doesn't fucking matter. It's still football and basketball at the end of the day, and most people don't care. And sports have been captured a lot by like the liberal media. They captured sports a long time ago. Part of it was through the journalist class. This was a positive about Bloody Elbow getting killed over the Vice News Network. You had these kinds of journalists. They would shape the sport, and they shape the sport through their commentary, through their opinion pages, and all that kind of stuff. So you see that a lot with like Bloody Elbow trying to do that with UFC. They're trying to shape UFC through their cartoon drawings of Dana White being a giant tomato or something like that, in a white suit. And he's a giant tomato with a red face and a white suit. And talking about how he should lose his job and everybody should be fired and UFC should pay more money and all this kind of stuff. Like that's what happened to the NFL and to the NBA. Because remember, there used to be a time where the NBA, the NFL, they didn't want women in the locker room, and then it just got abused by the media. Now today's players couldn't imagine, not wanting women on the sideline, or something like that. They couldn't imagine it because it's always been that way for them. But when I was growing up, there weren't too many women on the sideline. There definitely weren't any women going in the locker rooms, but they became a big deal. The journalist class started shaping the sport. They started deciding what players should play that day or not. What was a scandal and what wasn't. They started making those decisions, and then those decisions started messing with the public relations of the sport, which started affecting the way the team played. You had teams. Colin Kaepernick is a great example of that. He was a mid football player who kept getting tryouts because he was culturally relevant. Everybody was trying to find a reason to put him on their team. 32 teams in the NFL. He could take his fucking pick. And he just didn't want to play football anymore. It was he made more money protesting in the NFL than he ever made playing in the NFL. But the league, the teams kept bringing him in. Why? He's clearly not fucking good enough to be on the team. Because it was all about being culturally relevant. They just want to be the team that respects Colin Kaepernick enough to give him a chance. It's dumb. It's dumb. And a lot of this stuff that, I think AJ3 is talking about this right here. I haven't read his comment completely, but Howard Stern went woke. The only people that really hasn't gone full woke is that was around in the late 90s, early 2000s, the South Park. The Simpsons, full woke. Simpsons is dead in the water. WWE is like 40% woke. They're not woke enough for it to be dead. But they got executives using the word Latinx. It was all about pushing Stephanie and the women's revolution and LGBT organizations and all this kind of shit. Darren Miles is not wrong about this. It'll probably be a WWE is fighting against climate change, the battle against climate change. It'll definitely be when Vince is dead, though. Vince is going to have to die for that shit to happen. AEW is indeed fake woke. But again, this was one of the things that AEW did when they were, quote unquote, being a challenger brand, is they wanted to be the woke wrestling company, the progressive wrestling company. And then they saw how much that shit was going to cost. And they started talking about, we're going to give the boys health insurance. And everybody was like, really? Here it is 3 years later. Who got health insurance? Nobody. Except the EVPs, of course. They got health insurance. But that was the idea. We're going to focus on the women. WWE doesn't care about the women. We're going to have a most diverse roster. It's like, it doesn't work for anybody. Like, there's individual aspects of wokeness that works, like the Black Panther movies. Like, those are individual things that work in the woke generation. I think somebody mentioned The Boys. But, a lot of stuff is not working. It's a waste of money. It's just money being poured down the toilet. And whether you are in the Tim Pool, go woke, go broke, or in the Razor Fist, go broke, get woke category, we can both tell you. I think you can look at both of those and say that it doesn't matter. As soon as you start getting woke, it's over. Either you're running out of money, or you've already run out of money. Either way it goes, it's not good for you. It's not good for your brand. You know, it's not good for people who don't care about your brand to love your brand. People who don't care about the product that you produce. You can sit here and write all the gay Superman comics you want, and everybody in the New York Times can love it. They're not buying it. The people who don't want to buy gay Superman are not going to buy it. And then gay Superman goes away. Wow, capitalism works. Yeah, they didn't really care about Velma. The thing is, Vince cares so much about money, and most companies care so much about money. WWE is not a company that is so big that it can afford wokeness. Like banks are so huge sometimes, and movie houses and stuff like that. Some of these companies are so big that they can go woke and they won't feel it for a while. Disney is one of those companies. Like Disney can go full woke. It'll be a while before Disney start to waver because they're so big. They own a lot of different stuff. What's fucking over Disney is how they fucked over the people who come to the theme parks. It costs so much, and all of the rides and stuff, and the treats and tickets and everything cost so damn much that people decide they don't want to go anymore. That's really what's fucking with Disney. It's not really people are not rushing out to see Disney movies and stuff like that anymore because the Marvel movies still do okay. The TV shows, they bomb out a little bit, but they do okay. The streaming service isn't really working out. That's just streaming service business. But Disney is so big. You don't have to worry about Disney going bankrupt. They're just starting to lose money where they can be. They lost money on pretty much most of the new Star Wars movies, didn't they? They probably didn't lose money on them, but they were, the merchandise didn't move. They probably sold tickets to the movies, but they didn't move the merchandise, which is part of the success of Star Wars, is the big merchandise, aspect to it. So that's individual things about wokeness that works. But that's what WWE will have to do to be culturally relevant in 2023. They will have to go woke. And you don't want that. You don't want people that you generally might like on television being pussies. Like, imagine if fucking John Cena came out there wearing that abortion shirt that CM Punk was wearing. Oh my God. It would get hella impressions on YouTube and Facebook, and everybody would be so excited. John Cena is pro-choice. Oh my God, that's so great. But just think about all the people that would turn on him immediately the moment he did it. Just like when he spoke Chinese, right? He apologized to the Chinese for offending them. So many people were like, John Cena bought off by the Chinese. Just imagine if he did some shit like Hangman Page. He coming out there in rainbows. If he'd have done some stuff like that, man, it'd have been over with. WWE would be like, uh-oh. There'd be a lot of people who would be furious. Like, there have been people who have been mad at WWE before for individual characters like Jack Swagger or Muhammad Hassan or whatever. But you talk about in today's climate, some kind of stuff would destroy WWE. Batista talking about how he doesn't talk to Manny Pacquiao anymore because Manny Pacquiao is a homophobe. That kind of shit. Like, who really wants that? Who wants to watch wrestling that's like that? These fucking guys are just soft and weird and whiny. And it's like, he's so empathetic. I love me some Dave Batista. And he comes out talking about, am I so unattractive that I can't do a rom-com? I'm like, ugh. Where's your confidence, Dave? Dude, you're 50. I don't know, man. But that's what it would take to have a boom period today. You would have to have cultural relevance. And I think WWE right now has a cool brand where, Roman Reigns is keeping the brand as cool as possible with the acknowledge me and head of the table stuff, the fun stuff he's been doing with Sami Zayn. You don't want to ruin that by having all the woke idiots underneath him talking about, white supremacy and all that kind of shit. You don't want that. It's bad enough they all keep talking about your male-dominated industry and the women's revolution and blah, 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 blah. Then you had that dumb broad who was like, I want the same amount of money and I want the same amount of time as Roman Reigns. And a joke. A joke. But that's what you would have to do. There's no, in today's cultural revolution, that's the way that you would get a lot of mainstream relevance, but it'd kill your brand. Because then you would be aligned with moralizing leftists that will not stop, ever. They won't stop. That's the thing about, Vince that I really appreciate, because it was not going to stop with him. It was not going to stop with him. Once you say, well, we need to get rid of Vince. So once he's gone, then what? You just move on to somebody else. That's exactly what they did with Jackson Riker. This AJ3 is talking about here. We got to get rid of Jackson Riker. He sucks. Blah, blah, blah. You got rid of him. Then they just moved on to somebody else. We got to get rid of him for this reason. Oh, no, I can't believe Karrion Kross. He's yada, yada, yada. Got to get rid of him. Lacey Evans, Nikita Lyons. You got to get rid of these people. And it just doesn't make sense. It's not about talent anymore. It's all about, do your political views line up with mine? And that's how, modern society is working. Nobody wants that. You would think so. But a lot of the people who get caught up in Warner Brothers, like Ezra Miller, he's so bizarre. And he's so quote unquote diverse. They're not going to get rid of him. You would think that somebody like Gina Carano, who lost her job for saying that women, men can't get pregnant or something like that, she lost a Disney gig. That, kidnapping an underage girl and driving across the country with her would be a bridge too far. But apparently, if you're non-binary, it's okay. Okay. That's just kind of how, again, that's the world we live in now. All right. I think we talked enough, guys. Well, the thing is, Triple H did bring in some of the lowest ratings during the football era. During that football time, they was really getting killed. But it bounced back nicely since Raw 30. So football is over. Darren Miles says WWE's probably going to have a woke championship match or intergender LGBT mixed ethnicities championship. I'm surprised they haven't adopted like some kind of African-born championship or anything like that. I think that the Independence has one, doesn't it? Like a Pan-African world champion or something like that. And it's intergender, of course. At least I think so. I might be confused, but I'm pretty sure somebody has some kind of intergender thing going on where they're doing Pan-Africanism or whatever, African world title. It's goofy. I don't think WWE will do that as much as they just want to tout the diversity of their talent. And they're doing the things I think is pretty smart. Like, they're making the roster more diverse without going over the board and yelling about it. Like, there's more Asian women on the roster now than it's ever been before. There's an Arab woman on the roster. Aaliyah is Arab. She's not really doing much of anything. I know she's been complaining about not doing anything. But she's on the roster. It's not all white women. It could be probably more. NXT has tons of black women. There's hella black women on NXT. People from different lifestyles and different shit like that. They've been opening up And Jake Atlas, before he was fucked up his whole career, he was on NXT, and they were him being gay wasn't a part of his storyline or his character arc or anything like that, but they let people know that he was gay. Quincy Elliott was another one. They was trying to. He also fucked up his career. Funny how the saucy gay guys are the ones who keep ruining their own shit, right? Lars Sullivan's another one, right? Gay dude, ruined his own career. But straight dudes ruin their own careers too. But they're trying to diversify the roster and diversify certain scenes and all that kind of stuff, but they're not doing it in a way that would be embarrassing. Like if it comes down to we need to push a black woman, they're not pushing just a shitty black woman. They're pushing the black women who are good. So I'm okay with that. If you're gonna push the women, make sure that they're good, whether they're black, gay, whatever, as long as they're good. That's the right way to do it. That's the right way to do diversity. If they wanted to do an all women show, I'm not against it. If you do it the right way, it could work probably. It ain't gonna work to the degree that they think it is. But part of the reason why Evolution didn't work is people didn't like the idea. Nobody ever went out of their way to ban men from being on the show. Unless you went for the way it was going to be men only. No, it was just kind of like we booked a show. It just so happened to be a lot of men on there. If you book a show and the women are the most interesting parts and then they end up being the bulk, if not the entirety of the show, I don't think anybody would mind. But it hasn't happened yet. They have yet to make that many women that interesting. So now you would get like one or two hot women's matches, and that's probably it. And that's good enough. All right, I need to get some water, and I need to go to bed. I gotta get to work in the morning. Appreciate everybody for stopping in. Thank you all for your time. We talked about video games and some guy sucking his own dick in Job Corps. We talked about Job Corps, which is weird. But we also talked a lot about AEW's business and WWE's business and what WWE could do to become more culturally relevant, which is to become woke. But they're resisting it. They're resisting it. I'm waiting for that June where WWE's logo turns rainbow. It's coming. I already know it's coming. And that's really when I'm really gonna have to go hard on this company. Oh yeah, Lanny Poffo did pass away. Lanny Poffo is not. It depends on how old you are. A lot of people are not old enough to really have appreciated Lanny Poffo. But the Genius was pretty good. He's a pretty good character. He was funny. He had the right lilt to his voice, like the effeminate nature to his hand gestures and his tone of voice. And he really wrote those poems apparently, and he kept them. So it was an interesting character. I liked the whole thing. Somebody had a clip with him and Mr. Perfect smashing the WWE Championship, and that actually led to him beating Hulk Hogan. I think he beat him by countout or disqualification or one of the two during that Mr. Perfect Hulk Hogan feud. And the Genius was a part of that. It was probably the best thing he'd ever done, best thing he was ever part of. So all my good Genius memories comes from him and Mr. Perfect being partners against Hulk Hogan during that Saturday Night's main event era. That was fun. All right. Thank you guys for your time. Do all the YouTube things. I appreciate you. Talk to you guys later, man. Peace.